Washington, the Senate is now going to take up the NSA domestic spying bill that passed Thursday in the House with an overwhelming 303 to 121. The bill would end bulk collection of Americans' phone calls, but little else following what some are calling its watering down by the White House and intelligence communities. Joining me now is Republican Congressman Robert Pittenger, chairman of the Congressional Task Force on Terrorism and Conventional Warfare. Welcome back to the broadcast, sir. It's nice to see you.
Thank you, Alex. Afternoon to you.
Well, I know that you voted in favor of this bill, but you've been very supportive of the NSA, and you've issued some, frankly, grave warnings about terrorist threats. So what made the decision for you to cast this yay vote?
Well, we have an obligation in our Constitution to protect our Fourth Amendment, the right to privacy, but we also have the obligation to secure and defend this country from enemies from within and from without. This bill does that. This bill was passed out of Judiciary Committee without a single dissenting vote, and then, of course, went to the House and passed overwhelmingly. So this is a good bill. You know, Alex, when I was in Europe recently, I met with the ambassadors from the Organization of Security and Cooperation in Europe. Our ambassador, Dan Baer, set up the meeting. And in these ambassadors, I asked them, I said, what do you perceive as the threat today in America from the Al-Qaeda and their other associates? What role should America play, and what role do you believe that Intel data plays? And really the agreement from all this group was, we want privacy, but we need your intelligence. We have to know what Al-Qaeda and these associate groups are doing. They are stronger, more sophisticated than ever. They're not just training in one country, they're in a dozen countries. They understand cyber war. This is not a backyard gang. And we have to be focused and clearly understand our adversaries and use every means possible. Yet at the same time, what this bill does is secure the privacy for the American people.
Do you see this, sir, as a first step of sorts? Are there other reforms, if any, you would like to see?
Well, I think this is a prudent reform that really addresses the issue. This puts all this data that's in private sources. We have to go to the FISA court, as we had to before, to demonstrate a specific address or a specific number. You can't just do blanket numbers and wholesale go in and look at data from these private venues. So the FISA court has to prove it, and then in demonstrating your need to know it and the reality that there is a terrorist from the outside the United States who is contacting someone inside the United States.
But sir, with regard to the specifics, how specific do they have to be? Because I'm reading in the research here that it's not necessarily strictly defined. I mean, you can have the NSA could, for instance, specify they wanted to collect targets in a city, a state, a zip code.
That's really not correct. It has to be specific. I was with the attorneys. I was with the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. We went over this for several hours. And you have to have a specific request. And each request has to be standalone to go in and get approval from the FISA court.
Okay. With regard to the Senate, how do you expect that body to vote? Well,
I heard that Senator Wyden believed that it was much too restrictive. So we'll see how they go. Those individuals who are very much involved in the intelligence in behalf of our country understand the grave circumstances we face from our adversaries. And so it is a balancing, recognizing that we have to continue to honor our Constitution, to protect the privacy of the American people, but we have to understand that our adversaries are highly sophisticated, and they have not backed down, and we can't back down.
Representative Pittenger, Glenn Greenwald, as you know, has published the latest expose from Edward Snowden this week, revealing that the NSA is recording and archiving every phone call in the Bahamas and another unnamed country, and then to a lesser degree in Mexico, Philippines, Kenya as well. Why are some of these places, say the Bahamas, integral to our national security?
I think where terrorists are located. I think our pursuit is in behalf of terrorists. But let's talk about Mr. Snowden. Mr. Snowden had access to nearly 2 million documents related to our Department of Defense. He was fully aware, and as a result, our adversaries had this information, our planning, our strategies. This is very critical information, far overshadows the reality of what he was able to convey in terms of data collection. Mr. Snowden is no hero. What he did was as a traitor. And,
sir, there are those who would argue, though, that the public deserves some transparency on this, and he brought that.
Well, the transparency is there, and I think that's why you have every member of the Judiciary Committee, not one dissenting vote, Democrat and Republican, conservative and liberal, voted in behalf of this bill. This is a good bill that protects the American people and protects the privacy of the American people, while it enables us to track those who are in pursuit as adversaries.
But, sir, had we not had the information from Edward Snowden, wouldn't this vote have never happened?
Well, Mr. Snowden was no hero. As I said, what he did was a discredit. As I told you, when I was in Europe, I had one foreign minister in Europe who said, Congressman Pittenger, without American intelligence, we're blind. The world understands the gravity of the situation. When I was in the Middle East, meeting with our friends or allies in the Middle East, the Crown Prince, the Emir, others, they said we have to be aware that we must work with the United States. We must work with Israel. Our adversary are those who seek to destroy all of us, and those are the terrorists. And this is an issue that has to stay on the radar screen. We can't assume that the war on terrorism is over. It's not over.
All right, Representative Robert Pittenger, thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Good day.
Thank you. Family of 9/11 victims.